All right, gentlemen, can you please declare yourselves and your purpose for being here?
Sure. Mike Ryan, I'm Detective Sergeant from the Regional Police, badge number 9234.
And Lupe Damiano, Detective, Niagara Regional Police, badge 9664.
Thank you.
Maybe sit or do you want to stand?
Oh, please, yeah, go ahead. Let me move my mail out of the way.
So, Joanna, basically...
I'm not going to film your faces. I just wanted to get that statement.
Yeah.
But, you know.
Yeah,
okay.
no, fair is fair. So, you said free speech, all of that. You're very much aware of why we're here in the sense that you've been putting some things on your personal social media.
According to... From whom is this complaint originating and what's the allegation?
It's with the Law Association of Ontario.
Law Association of Ontario? Law Society?
Society, sorry. Yeah.
They're making an allegation I've done something criminal?
No. Well, it is a criminal investigation.
That I've done something criminal?
Yeah, I'll tell you what. Can I just give a little blurb, and then and then I'll answer any questions, and you can say anything. So, Law Association of Ontario. I guess there's a series of 10 lawyers who are of the Jewish faith, who are of the opinion. Yeah, I know. Just hear me.
My partner is Jew, by the way.
Okay. So the investigators have...
I bet I can guess exactly who these people are.
Yeah, and I'm not here to speak to any of that, but...
I have not threatened anyone.
Okay. So basically you're walking a line in some people... Can I have just 2 minutes and then...
No, I can tell you right now that this to me is a total escalation of fascism. Okay. This is... I have never threatened anyone. Criticism of Israel, criticism of extreme political Zionism does not amount to anti-Semitism.
I hear you, and I'm
My
a big
spouse is
proponent
an
of
anti-Zionist Jewish person.
Yeah.
Okay? So I know what my civil liberties are. And the fact that you are here is a nightmare to me.
Okay.
This is like a dystopic novel. This is very Orwellian. And you should be ashamed.
Okay.
What is it? I've said exactly that's criminal.
Yeah.
Tell me.
I don't have the whole file and everything that's criminal. I just know that there's a series of unwanted messages to various lawyers.
Who? No one has said stop messaging me.
Well, that's exactly why we're here. We're here to say stop messaging people on LinkedIn and their personal X accounts.
They can tell me if they don't want me to comment on their messages, but do you want to see the death threats I've received? Do you want to... I'm going to post all of this, by the way. Yeah. If they don't want me to... if they want to post things that are anti-Arab, anti-Palestinian, Islamophobic, inciting of whipping up race wars within Canada, which is what I am trying to prevent, by the way. You saw what happened in the UK.
So sorry.
You saw what happened in the UK. Yeah. A bunch of white nationalists went after refugees and refugee lawyers. Okay? I'm not going after any person in particular, but what I am doing is condemning people who are using those platforms to whip up hate. If they don't want to hear it, they can say, please stop messaging me. They can block me. The fact that they're calling you is outrageous. And the fact that you are wasting taxpayers' money to bother me about and impinge upon my civil liberties to threaten me in this way is outrageous. You should be ashamed of yourself.
Just for clarity, we're not conducting this investigation. We're here.
Who?
The Ottawa Police Services. So they reached out to us and said, "Can you go talk to Joanne and just let her know that the messages are unwanted?"
They can tell me that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be suppressed into silence because some bigots in Ottawa who hate Muslims and hate Arab people can't handle when I push back against that.
Yeah.
And the fact you are here, this kind of bullying is outrageous.
Well, I don't know if it's quite bullying.
This is bullying and intimidation. I'm outraged. Yeah. I am so outraged. This is neo-fascism. And in its worst form, it starts this way. It starts with you coming to my home because some person can make some, anonymous complaint because I comment on saying, I bet you, who celebrate the terroristic attacks against Lebanese people and say that this is the coming of the apocalypse and how wonderful this is, and I have been calling them out and saying that that is hate speech, and it is inciting violence against migrants, is inciting violence against racialized people, and they are weaponizing your office. I am so horrified.
To be fair on a couple of things.
What have I done?
I'm just gonna,
I haven't been blocked. I've had no complaints on LinkedIn.
You're very upset, and
I'm a refugee lawyer.
Yeah, I know this.
I'm beyond infuriated.
You invited us.
You
invited us into your home, and we are happy to leave.
Leave, and if you give me any kind of threat or condemnation, shame on you.
Zero threat.
I swear to God, shame on
We're
you.
here on behalf.
Shame on you. My chosen mother is Palestinian. She's lost people.
Jen,
My spouse is a Jew.
the world is a very complicated place right
Yes,
now.
and
Police,
you being deployed.
we are impartial to
This
whole
is
situation.
harassment.
I'm sorry to have upset you. Not our intention. Okay?
You need to grow the fuck up and learn about civil liberties.
Okay.
Honest to God. Because if I'd done anything wrong, they could have reported me to LinkedIn. They could have blocked me. Instead, they deploy you to bully me.
Certainly not.
Shame! You are! The fact of you coming here, you are bullying me. You are impinging upon. This is the fact of you being apparatus of the state, agents of the state, detectives.
So we're happy.
This is harassment.
So we're happy to leave, and we're going to do that.
Leave.
Okay.
Shame on you.
So no more unwanted messages, please. Or you
No.
can be charged with criminal.
No, I will not have my speech
okay.
suppressed.
That's fine.
If they don't want to hear from me, they can say, stop messaging me, or they can block me. But deploying you should.
Okay.
I am shaking. I am so angry. I am shaking.
Never our intention, but as long as.
Shame on you. Get the fuck out of my house.
We will leave. Have a good day, Joanne.
I can't wish the same for you. Shame on you.
What is Greater Israel? This recently came up after this article in one of the main English-language Israeli newspapers, the Jerusalem Post, went viral. The article was called, "Is Lebanon Part of Israel's Promised Territory?" and it explains the origins of a concept called Greater Israel. The article reads, "In the last generation, the term Greater Israel has come to the forefront. It's sometimes used in political or religious discussions about the ideal or future borders of Israel, often in the context of messianic or Zionist aspirations. Some interpret it as a call for the reestablishment of Israel's biblical borders. However, the concept varies in meaning, ranging from symbolic or spiritual interpretations to literal geographic claims." Greater Israel has been a topic of discussion, especially after Israel's attacks in Lebanon, which revealed a deeper desire within Israel's extreme right to actually begin Jewish settlement in Lebanon. The so-called Israeli Movement for Settlement in southern Lebanon posted a map of the sites of prospective Jewish settlements with all the Arabic names replaced with Hebrew names. This ideology has had a resurgence lately, largely because Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu formed his coalition government with Messianic Zionist parties. There's a whole documentary by TRT about this called Holy Redemption: Stealing Palestinian Land, and it's worth watching, but this video will focus on the history of the concept. The article in the Jerusalem Post was taken down, but you can read it by using an internet archive site like archive.org, and the article says, quote, "Greater Israel refers to the concept of the biblical boundaries of the land of Israel as promised to the Jewish people in various parts of the Torah. It's often associated with the land described in the covenant with Abraham, which stretches from the river of Egypt to the Prat River." And then it quotes the Torah, "When Hashem, God, promised Abraham the land of Israel, the verse says, 'On that day, God made a covenant with Abraham, saying, to your descendants I have given this land from the river of Egypt to the great river, the Euphrates,' which is Mesopotamia or modern-day Iraq." While it has religious origins, the Greater Israel concept is referenced from the very first days of the Zionist movement. The Zionist movement was a movement of European Jews who wanted Jews in Europe to move to Palestine to create a Jewish state. One of the first mentions of Greater Israel is written in the founder of the Zionist movement, Theodor Herzl's diary in 1898, just 1 year after the first Zionist Congress. On page 711 of his diary, Herzl describes the geographic proposal for a hypothetical Jewish state and says that the area demanded will be from the Brook of Egypt to the Euphrates. He then goes on to describe how this area will be slowly transferred from an Arab majority to a Jewish majority. The Zionist movement first presented this map showing what a future Jewish state would look like at the Paris Peace Conference in 1919, the conference where the World War I surrender terms were being signed. The empires that had won the war, Britain, France, Italy, and Japan, were dividing up the colonies of the losers, the Ottoman and German empires. One of the territories the Ottoman Empire lost was this area here, the Levant. The Levant is the heart of 3,000 years of Arab civilization. For centuries, they lived under the Ottoman Empire, but the empire's collapse during World War I brought hope that Arabs might finally be able to govern themselves. Instead of that, however, the Allied powers took over and created entirely new countries based on completely arbitrary boundaries. The map of the Middle East we know today was literally drawn with pencils and straight edges at a meeting at 10 Downing Street in London, which is the British Prime Minister's office, by two British and French diplomats named Mark Sykes and Francois Picot. Under the all-too-familiar colonial guise of protecting minorities, the European powers drew states that intentionally divided the region along the lines of sect. This is deeply ironic because Arabs are often accused of being sectarian, that religious and ethnic conflict is just part of their culture. But these distinctions between Christians and Muslims, Shia and Sunni, Arab and Kurd, were really exploited and exaggerated by the British and French, not Arabs. They literally tried to bake conflict into these countries, a legacy which still hasn't gone away today. This divide and conquer strategy is the textbook strategy of colonialism and can be observed in just about every single colonial situation in history. Part of the British strategy in Palestine was to hand over their mandate to the pro-Western, pro-colonial Zionist movement. The Paris Peace Conference of 1919, where the British and French were dividing up the spoils of World War I, is where the Zionist movement first presented its proposal for the borders of a future Jewish state. The map presented by then leading Zionist activist and future first Prime Minister of Israel, David Ben-Gurion, was drawn by the World Zionist Organization and included the East Bank, which is the eastern side of the Jordan River, part of southern Lebanon, and the Egyptian Sinai. The map was rejected by Britain and France, and what followed was a long debate over what the borders of the future Jewish state should be. One of the leading proponents of expansive settlement was this guy, Zev Jabotinsky, a leader of the hard-right revisionist wing of the Zionist movement. At the 1931 Zionist Congress, Jabotinsky actually split the Zionist movement over the question of Transjordan being included in a future Jewish state because he felt it was such a crucial aspect. This is notable because Jabotinsky is considered the ideological forefather of the Likud party, the party of Benjamin Netanyahu. His most famous writing, The Iron Wall, is an essay he wrote in 1923 that argued that there would never be a voluntary agreement over European settlement in Palestine because, in his own words, there's never been a historical instance of a colonial project getting consent from the native population. He argued the only way a Jewish state could be established is if Jewish settlers create an iron wall which the natives couldn't breach. The essay is only 7 pages long, and it's definitely worth reading. Israel declares independence in 1948, but in its entire history, Israel's never actually defined its own borders. Israel's borders have changed almost constantly in its 70-year history because it's always conquering or trying to conquer more land. In 1948, Israel expelled Palestinians into neighboring countries to create a Jewish majority state. In 1967, Israel fought the Six-Day War. The popular Israeli narrative of this war is that all of the Arab governments woke up one day and randomly attacked Israel because they hate Jews. But the truth is, Israel provoked a war with the Arab states intentionally. This was openly admitted by several high-level Israeli generals after the war. Matthew Peled, one of the Israeli commanders in the Six-Day War, told the Israeli newspaper Haaretz the thesis that the danger of genocide was hanging over us in June 1967 and that Israel was fighting for its physical existence is only a bluff, which was born and developed after the war. In the 1967 war, Israel conquers all of historic Palestine, the Egyptian Sinai, and the Syrian Golan Heights, more than doubling its territory. The UN does force Israel to return the Sinai, but Israel refuses to leave the Syrian Golan Heights, which is still under Israeli occupation today. One of the major turning points for Israel is its 1982 invasion of Lebanon. It was Israel's first attempt at a major occupation of a country outside of historic Palestine. But even before Israel's invasion, it had been using Christian sects in Lebanon as proxies to fight the Palestinian liberation fighters in the south of the country. Lebanese Christian fascists famously served as the trigger pullers in the Israeli-orchestrated Sabra and Shatila massacres, where 3,000 Palestinian refugees were executed over the course of a day and a half in what the UN General Assembly condemned as an act of genocide. One of the visions for Israel's long-term strategic outlook to come out of this invasion was laid out by an aide to the Israeli Minister of Defense at the time, Ariel Sharon. The strategy paper, called A Strategy for Israel in the 1980s, which was published by the World Zionist Organization's ideological journal, Kivunim, or Directions in Hebrew, explains in thorough detail how Israel should exploit the sectarian divisions in other Arab countries, as they did in Lebanon, in a larger strategy to fracture the Arab world. It says, quote, "The Muslim Arab world is built like a temporary house of cards, put together by foreigners without the wishes and desires of the inhabitants having been taken into account. It was arbitrarily divided into 19 states, all made of combinations of minorities and ethnic groups which are hostile to one another, so that every Arab Muslim state nowadays faces ethnic social destruction from within, and in some, a civil war is already raging." Then it goes on to say, Syria is fundamentally no different from Lebanon. The real civil war taking place nowadays between the Sunni majority and the Shia Alawite ruling minority testifies to the severity of the domestic trouble. Iraq is, once again, no different in essence from its neighbors, although its majority is Shia and the ruling minority is Sunni. It then lays out its strategy for what it calls the Eastern Front. The dissolution of Syria and Iraq later on into ethnically or religiously unique areas such as in Lebanon is Israel's primary target. In the long run, while the dissolution of the military power of those states serves as the primary short-term target, Syria will fall apart in accordance with its ethnic and religious structure. This state of affairs will be the guarantee for peace and security in the area in the long run, meaning for Israel, and that aim is already within our reach today. If you observe the strategy followed by Benjamin Netanyahu throughout his career, it follows this strategy almost exactly. In 2002, he urged Congress to invade Iraq over the weapons of mass destruction it never had. The US occupation plunged Iraq into a bloody sectarian civil war by manipulating balances between the Shia and Sunni Muslims. In Syria, Israel held an official position of neutrality, but later admitted to arming the mostly Sunni rebels while simultaneously carrying out regular attacks against the government, which was controlled by Shia Alawites, in a situation where neutrality actually meant for Israel undermining both sides in a civil war. And of course, in Lebanon today, we see Israel collectively punishing the Lebanese people and then telling non-Muslims to blame Muslims for Israeli airstrikes. And I'll just say on a parting note that the cartoonish caricature of the Middle East as a region that's just hopelessly condemned to thousand-year-old ethnic and religious conflicts is one of the greatest lies that's ever been perpetuated in the post-9/11 era. This narrative, which convinced millions of people that turmoil and conflict were intrinsic parts of Arab society, concealed the reality that these were really intrinsic parts of British and French colonial strategy and US world domination. After the 1919 Paris Peace Conference, an American fact-finding mission was created to survey the opinions of the people of the Levant to see what kind of future government they wanted. Taken in 1919, the King Crane Commission surveyed 1,520 villages in Syria, Lebanon, Palestine, and Transjordan. Of the 2.5 million Muslims, 500,000 Christians, 100,000 Jews, and 100,000 Druze that were surveyed, a full 80% of respondents voted for this option here. Greater Syria, which was the concept for a unified pan-Arab state that would have combined Lebanon, Palestine, Syria, and Transjordan into one country. Greater Syria obviously never came into fruition because it would have been unacceptable to the colonial powers of the time, but it's interesting to think back on given what we know today. The whole thesis of that 1982 Israeli strategy memo was premised on the idea that Pan-Arabism was dead. But if anything, the last year has shown us that Pan-Arabism is still highly relevant not just to the question of Palestine, but the region as a whole. For the last 30 years, Israel's been normalizing its presence in the region by making peace agreements with Arab states one by one, thereby isolating the issue of Palestine and creating a permanent beachhead for US and Israeli imperialism. But the last year not only shattered this possibility, it showed definitively that the mass of Arab people still considered the Palestinian cause an Arab cause and a cause of their own, and refused to see it abandoned like their leaders have. It's not surprising that the 1982 memo was contingent on the absence of Arab unity. Unity has always spelled the downfall of empires, and Israel isn't likely to be an exception.
Look at this frame here, and look at this one. Okay. This one here is from Sheryl Sandberg's documentary, and this other one is from Al Jazeera's film called October 7th. One of these two productions is from a filmmaker and a journalist with at least some integrity and experience who seems to honor the gravity, seriousness, and consequences of what they're producing and the art form. And the other is from a woman who is worth $2.2 billion with a background in economics and business, who was mentored by Lawrence Summers, who recruited her to the World Bank before she later joined Google and then Facebook and made her fortune. See if you can spot the difference. I mean, the locations and the setups are quite similar. The interview subject is from the same group, that's Zaka. And let's see how the two handle very similar situations here.
As you can see, the body was brutal in different stages. This is a part of the breast. Over here, and over here, and over here. Oh my God. זאת בחורה שהיא הייתה ערומה, הרימו לה חצאית הייתה עד למעלה והיא בלי תחתונים, פגעו בה.
And what is that there?
That's one foot, that's the other foot.
מכנסיים ותחתונים היו למטה.
This is the body with the nail.
I want to see the picture. I have the picture of it.
Are you able to share the photographic evidence with us?
To show you. Yes. Where's my phone? Oh, I'm sorry. I will not put it in front of the camera.
No, that's fine. I'll come and look.
This is the knife they used.
Shot, killed, but
Over here was the woman.
But that's the imagery after the bodies had been cleared away. Oh.
Yes. This is the baby. This is it.
I'm sorry to be graphic here, but I can't see a baby here.
You can't see the baby but this is the picture of the mother.
Okay.
For sure, you know, we didn't think when we over there, we didn't think to camera everything. We didn't have that. This wasn't in our.
The photo shows an unidentifiable piece of charred flesh. The list of the dead contains no victim that fits Yossi Landau's description.
You see, this kind of thing really irks me. Sheryl Sandberg has the financial means to get on a plane and write a bunch of checks and set this up in a matter of weeks or less, I'm sure, and make it look pretty good. I think I don't need to do any more teardowns of this piece of propaganda, which has been debunked over and over again.
We're in the Palestinian village of Al Khair, and for the past few days it has been under increased pressure from the settlers. Just now, two settlers came and opened the pipe that brings water to the village, and one of them then invaded the village and came up right to the houses and started shoving us. The army came, talked to the settler, and to the question of what's going on, he responded, "There are many Arabs here." A while later, the settlers and the soldiers left, finally allowing us to close the water pipe. Neither the army nor the police did anything about the water pipe. This has been happening for weeks. The settlers regularly come here and open the water pipe in order to damage their village's access to resources and precipitate the ethnic cleansing of this land.
This is the Al Sahal hospital on the outskirts of Dahir. Dahir, of course, is a stronghold of Hezbollah. Now, we're in the basement. This is, it's alleged by the Israelis that this hospital is being used by Hezbollah as a way of storing gold and cash. Now, we've been invited in here. This tour has been in no way exhaustive. You can see there are lots of other press here as well. But we haven't been controlled in terms of what we can film or where we can point our camera. We've been allowed to open doors, move around. Now, there may be other areas of the hospital that we've not been taken to, but for all, you know, this looks like a hospital. This is one of the operating theatres here. We can talk to one of the doctors. This is Dr. Omar, who is an emergency doctor.
Yes, here at Sahel Hospital.
So Israel says that this place is being used by Hezbollah for gold and cash. What's your answer to that? What would you say?
Our answer to this is that these allegations are wholly unbased, and this is a hospital where people come to get treated. As you can see, this is an operating theater. People undergo surgery here.
Doctor, if you can show us a bit more around, and this is the basement where we are now.
Oh yeah, right now we're in the basement. This is the basement. This is where we send patients from operating rooms to the recovery room. This is a sterility store. So this is where we sterilize all the instruments that need to be sterilized for in order to perform surgeries.
And how worrying is this moment for you? Because you've had to evacuate the hospital.
Yes, we had to evacuate the hospital last night after the allegations. It was incredibly hard on us, and honestly, it was a really frantic night to figure out where to put all the other patients and how to evacuate the patients or send them home.
And this is the lowest level of the hospital?
Yes, this is the lowest level of the hospital.